Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, I got you. Yeah. Do they have it?
Ja, vi.
Yep, I will start. Thank you.
Arm got it.
You want to close the door? Everybody ready?
Most of my Latino and Black people who are struggling to get food, clothes, and shelter in the hood are so concerned with that philosophizing about freedom and socialist democracy is usually, unfortunately, beyond their rationale. They don't realize that America can't exist without separating them from their identity. Because if we had some sense of who we really are, there's no way in hell we'd allow this country to push its genocidal consensus on our homelands. This ignorance exists when it can be destroyed. Niggas talk about change and working within the system to achieve that. The problem with always being a conformist is that when you try to change the system from within, it's not you who changes the system, it's the system that will eventually change you. There is usually nothing wrong with compromising a situation, but compromising yourself in a situation is another story completely. And I have seen this happen long enough, the few years that I've been alive, to know that it's a serious problem.
It's time for a history lesson, not the whitewash history, the fake Rosa Parks history, or the MLK history. We examine the history before history. Extinction is upon us. For bodies of color, we have been extinct ever since the Middle Passage. The African stepped into the slave ships, that the African stepped onto the New World as black. And since the black is released and spread to the ends of the earth, touching bodies of color all over, particularly for the black female body. This is why empirically and currently, bodies of color continue to face the oppressive structures of whiteness. Coming out of the 1800s, the world was set up as a structural disadvantage to all those who were not good enough to be white. We thought the slave trade was over, but the structure of society continues to reveal to us that we are still being shipped through policy made by the federal government in the name of liberty and justice. Dominated for the movement in terms of power, institutional racism, and imperialist military power have been mystified, but they play within the doomsday framing. How can we talk about the struggles of racism, poverty, exploitation, there be no more off to drop the bomb, the effects of nuclear war concludes 25 to 100 million people killed, the same number of African people died between 1492 and 1800 of the world of the African slave trade to the New World. For people of color, the world we know it in this century with our role with his language, culture, the way it ended, the death culture commits to be more concerned with death and lives and more than willing to demonstrate survival, ending cause and show for liberty, peace, and dignity. As women of color, we're the warriors, not the path. We must fight over our people, all fronts, and continue to die as a people. Anti-blackness operates as a master signifier in white supremacist society such as the United States, but not without being deeply shaped by class and gender. The hypersexualized and masculinated black woman, a demasculinated black man in a pretty white world, we endure an ethic to start with the black female body to criticize patriarchy and anti-blackness. Only through a black feminine lens can we ever question the distinction of class, race, and sexuality. UFF noted. Black women think are playing a major role in recent our understanding of race as an intersectional analysis of gender, sexuality, race, and class. Black women are written individuals. Such approach to race operates as master signifier white supremacist society such as the United States, not without being deeply shaped by our class and gender must be articulated and theorized in context of race in race and black feminist theory with our grounding, especially in black culture experience in the United States, go beyond the simple conclusion of black feminist thought into white feminist sociology. Black feminist interventions have influenced the way black life is in such a way the representation itself, definition is the key thing in black feminist intervention is the way it changed the way that race is being conceptualized, the way black thought and being are imagined in the intersectional frames of black feminist. Now the resolution forces us as debates to form our conversation around the federal government and active economic engagement, one of the three top countries. We should not be fooled. It's literally just a turning of the community to think trendy debaters to become the fascist oppressors that make up the federal government as bodies of color. We are forced to have these conversations that put our bodies on ships and send them to Latin America as a form of economic engagement, as enslaving the experience of the slave of the commodity to the federal government. Hence the resolution is the planning of another transatlantic slave trade. James 26. Domestic police and police brutality were said that spectacle and terrorists in the U.S. foreign policy deaths funded by the U.S. Congress and CIA torture and terrorist killing were deployed to derail social and political movement. Now that the U.S. President Attorney blind to go for support for violence and force the U.S. hegemony, the U.S. exerted influence over the Americas, designating Mexico, Central and South America, and the Caribbean at their backyard. Honestly, lots of these societies have put the bodies of color in a coma. We think that we are socially dead, but we are honestly just socially wounded. We are the life within the death, the life that is framed outside of community. Survival skills are key to affirm black life within social death. Section 11. To speak of black social life and black social death, black optimism, non-negation of Afro-pessimism, but just of black social life and non-negate social death by inhabiting, vitalizing, and living death, is as much of the death that it is living. Nothing Afro-pessimism suggests there is no black social life, only that black life is not social life form in the universe formed of the codes of state and civil society. Black life is not lived in the world lived in, but it is lived underground in outer space. Double emphasis on the living in the death. That's the whole point of the enterprise at some level. It's about the implication of these agreed upon point where argument should begin. So we still away. We still away from the dominant knowledge that controls the debate community. We still away because stealing away is the only way that a slave can have a life within social death that is created as it is chapter from his body for things like economic engagement. Instead of being the good citizens in which biopower depends on in the first place, stealing away allows for us as students, specifically students of color, to economic engagement within ourselves. This is our economic engagement with Latin America's African bodies shift to Latin America during the transatlantic slave trade to identify with bodies of color in America. Harvard 97. When the slaves situated to secret immediately called it stealing, the media just a runaway slave to describe it to themselves. These two live short lived life from captivity referred to as stealing away. Stealing away designated a right wage of activity focused on the contesting authority of the slave and the class and contributed that status in the slave position. The very phrase stealing away plays upon the paradise of property's agency. And the idea of property is that's alluding to the captive condition of the legal form of unlawful or immoral. Zero Spiller described the violence seeking of the captive body from the motive of an active desire. Maybe the matter only property cannot still property. Now the role of the ballot is to vote for the best speech act that conformably and methodologically breaks down anti-blackness. And 1AC is a critical starting point. Our performative pedagogy of blackness allowed for us to highlight it at the position of oppression, which allowed for the cleansing of our discourse and centered around domestic and foreign policy. Not only this, but our pedagogy allowed for us as students to understand how power relations that manifest within the debate community through the change of whiteness were in fashion for. Performative pedagogy can ask questions that point to the structure, machinery, writing, can serve as the pedagogy of the person. It can ask them the position of power, be it race, sex, class, or sexuality. It can question their own embodied experience by doing that they encounter the other through the mode of performance for white dysfunction and dominant discourse of the unmarked center of cultural power that a performative pedagogy can and must have to create the ground first as the method of infleshment that brings theory to the body can question the normal, stable, inevitable actual relation to race. Now, bodies of color can depend on the law to be our protectors anymore, since the injuries of slavery can never be undone. We must create new remedies to help these socially wounded bodies. Society continues down the same road as currently on. Society will pull the plug on the black body inside of us, come a voting affirmative allow for the black body to be socially revived by stealing what is politics of future to be allowed for a survival method of black life within social death. Best in harmony 5. A just commutation, not opposed to remedies unjust. Any remedy have been welcome, deserved for the certain need of a remedy would not have been exhausted for the claim for such a plan for the reach of slavery. What is urgently needed, but any plan, any legal remedy would never be proved too narrow as such will prove necessary, inadequate. The injury of slavery must be borne since it cannot be reversed just beyond the scope of the law and necessary, inadequate. What has been done cannot be undone in the form of legal and social compensation available are less of a matter of wiping the slate clean than embracing the limited scope in the face of the irreparable, calling attention to the incompatibility between pain and compensation. How does one compensate for this injury of violence to have the consequence of the impossibility of restoring a prior existence of giving back what was taken of repairing was broken out the blackness of these slaves and ontological business that prefigures the arrest of liberalism, only beginning with our method of embodied criticism to the structures of liberal capitalism and the effective resistance. Barsky, 12. Blackness, ideological quotation, insurmountable analogy of the enslavement work that has Marxist disparate in relation to the time and the possibility of narrative validating collective rights and mechanisms for slavery, in which work are too extreme along the spectrum of the work ethics of plantation economy functions to normalize the subjectivity and erasing violence that they bring them to the world of threat. Black and political society organized by the liberal capitalism and policed by white can hardly be comprehended by the social movement project. No matter they try out the black structure as historical experience cannot undo blackness reenacted as an ontological position out to with the articulation of productive and reproductive role of threat of falling into the non-human action in the gender struggle as an inducement that both help black and female, male and female body and align their claims with the more reassured for the liberal legalism. Mark it out, legalism. Role of the judge is to be an anti-ethical decision maker. All decision calculus must resolve the ontological entity of the slave. Curry, 2013. Racism is not unethical because the moral from racism is unethical, immoral. It acts to capture the black, urging the acknowledgement of racism as an ontological entity of modern racism oppression the slave, the non-human. It is the historical events of inhumanity introduced by the modernity that allows for the white to retreat so easily into the rationalization of their death and memory. All slavery motivates the white to tap into black. That concludes that racism, while unfortunate, is necessary for America for the world to exist in humanity. The citizen to reach the historical imperial act. The Negro is born of racism, and behind all the present what the cultural, epistemological, historical, ontological to be determined ameliorated by being ethically deliberated on. The Negro is the moral rock bottom of the dehumanization. The shift out of our present conception of the man out of the world system has to be the first and foremost cultural shift until a rupture in our conception of being human is brought forth.
My first question is, what is the role of the 1AC's performative method in challenging oppression?
I don't understand what you're asking.
So, your first part of your 1AC, you describe your performative method. I guess, what is the role of that performative method?
Are you talking about when Immortal Technique was talking?
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
So, what's the role of that in challenging oppression?
Right, so we're saying that our performance is uniquely key in this debate around to challenge the structures of whiteness in debate. We're saying that Immortal Technique talks about when we try to work with things like the system, it only allows you to get co-opted by the system because it's not the system that you change.
So to make it clear, the 1AC's, I guess, end goal is to challenge structures within the debate space.
No, we say that we steal away. We're not trying to change debate. We're not trying to change you. We're saying that we should be stealing away from civil society because whenever we try to change society, it's not us that gets changed.
Okay, that's fair.
I'm sorry, that it's us that get changed.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah. So you read another card that's tagged only black feminine lens can be question oppression. Sure. I guess, why is the black feminist lens key?
Right, our BFF evidence highlights that the position that a black woman faces in places like a mirror or just functionally just civil society allows us to have an intersectional analysis of things like class, race, and sexuality.
Okay, so class, race, and sexuality, but you prioritize the black feminine lens, correct?
Sure.
Okay, great. The one you see tags a card, society has put black bodies of color, or put bodies of color in a coma. What does that mean?
So people often think that it's either you're not like socially dead or you are. We say that we're in a social coma. Our sex evidence talks about how we experience social death. Okay, but our argument that we're reviving ourselves by stealing away from civil society.
Why is that the equivalent of somebody's life being like literally on support by like a tube that breathes?
That's actually how it is for people that are black.
So
it's not like it's
everyone's
just
sitting on a hospital bed with a tube breathing?
Okay, no, it's a possibility that we can be...
Okay, so it's just like a metaphor, right?
It's a very real analogy.
Okay, in and out. That's fair. Your Barnchensky evidence says that blackness is an ontological condition. I guess, what does that mean?
I'm sorry?
Your Barnchensky evidence says that blackness is an ontological condition. What does that mean?
We say that blackness is something that we cannot take off. It's not like that we decide that we are black. It's something that is created once we are born. Once we are pretty much. Like we are living or in performance.
I gotcha. That makes sense to me. Okay, that's all I knew.
You guys all set? One.
If I can actually grab, you can start with that one, but if I can grab the jump track, then you all are done, that'd be awesome.
Oh, he just needs the one and C. Thank you. Yeah.
Two more case.
Yeah. Y'all good? First up is the CAPK basic politics and their gratuitous violence, racism, glosses over the political economy, legitimates neoliberal ideology and cements class hierarchies, re-13 criminals, vision to slavery, injustice, and brutalization. Slaves do not work the rest of them realize the state system relates to the fact that labor refers back to capital investment to no one to 30,000. Irish immigrants who died during constructing canal laborers to the ideal of the master service labor relation. The linchpin of suppression of political life with disenfranchisement as the mechanisms to slay the conservative to maintain the economic hedge, expressing the opposition brutality to the point of slavery, nor its injustice. The evidence of claims about the significance of life here. This emphasizes resistance, the importance of crossing the cultural representation. Nothing could indicate more than the then representative practice and constitutory infrastructure, well, production of mass cultures embedded in the capitalist imperatives. It is intellectually shallow politics. These conventions are made because they engage in nexus race politics. They are competence, ideological, their controversies, neoliberals, and universal across social context. This belief that racial equality stems from bad ideas and evil rights rather than positive society dilemmas structures mark within the most disturbing details of violence with philosophy keeps them at the bottom of the blindness to political economy, discomfort, well with reduction to injury to personal dynamics and substance recognition from politics, source subcharts, make them blame these places of politics, challenge structures that reproduce and equality, neoliberalism is affirmed with high cost, direct action, and impose institutional principle identitarians who maintain authenticity under the threat from institution. They are all distinguishable from the military right. They're disdain for the government and institutionally based political action, which they reflect as disparage, as inauthentic or corrupt, and race and gender pale in comparison to the effective class and oppression. It serves as an underlying system that sanctions racial violence. Their author's epistemology is rooted in neoliberal frames that prevent engagement with dominant discourses perpetuated by the political state. 1 and 5. The tendency of scholars to adjust across classes category the race and gender has disabled the class relation structure to determine this has led to the Russian class to vector of identity intersectionality for substance races instead of the static nominalism for hypercast analysis displays the marxist organ of knowledge with one that is politically idealist. So the other class analysis is the theoretical practice of understanding race and Russian classes relation is the only structure determined by ideology sanctioning racial oppression dilemma. Springs from CRT's inability to reject the system of masking is easier to congregate a circle of counter displays where the state exposes is inadequate. The CRT only renews itself as by internally by adopting methodologies within the dominant neoliberal dimension to eliminate the systemic domination. Radical justice may not be sufficient here, so justice and political economy are irreconcilable. Social justice and expectation are irreducible to intersubjective relations. CRT sought political neutrality can prevent it from engaging the dominant discourses as well as compromise its revolutionary aspirations. Experience-based politics are mediated through the structures of capitalist domination, starting with experience distorts a political analysis that's necessary for revolutionary change. McLaren and 14 marginalized classes to conflict with individual productive vocation and how the people's actually understanding who they really are based on their experiences. We are not renouncing experience. We are not, however, advocating the universal representation of experience that tends to assume that experience is not an extent of the same knowledge which treats experience itself explanatory individual experiential understanding of these they are not specific but also thorough partial other products of historical force about which individual may know little or nothing. Description is experiential as a political form of oppression racial otherwise we need to isolate these differences of person unless it expands to a multifaceted analysis capable of mapping out the general organization of social relations. That, however, requires a broad-based class-based approach that has to see as an overall social organization which cuts through radicalization and gender. The use of race as a descriptor or animal category serious consequences for the way the social life is to be organized. The conceptual framework that is pressed often an approach to interpret their extension and experiences of inequality clouds to
concrete reality of class and towards the actual structure of power. Race is a barrier to understanding the central class of the role of class in shaping the personal and the outcomes. Race has become an analog trap. This does not imply that we ignore racism. Racism explain racism. Those relations are best understood within the context of the class struggle that the concept of force of conceptual shift and theorizing, which entails moving beyond the ideology of race as dominant prisons for understanding. Their advocacy reflects the ideology of the Occupy, claiming the debate space is a site for organic, horizontalist policy cells or radical change to the private sphere and the individual performance. Marcus and Paul, the fisherman who comes to roll wrestle upon the elephant, stand on the turtle. What is the turtle? The turtles, all the way down to clear moral and nothing the bottom of the things since the early 1970s. Critics have many significant universal thought and analytical frameworks have gone into more sensitive localities and indeed the turtles all the way down the distance can take place only on the local scale. Horizontal plane, there's no apply for legislative, only a local knowledge. We have what is the right thing for us to do. Social solutions for all but disappear desires have been concentrated with how colleagues have been to the end. They have also represented a shift from large and small, from vertical to horizontal instead of radical schemes to rework economics institutions. There is everyday practices instead of counting capital to radical inspire spaces of freedom. It's a creek with an alienated bureaucracy. The erosion of self-determination. Occupy was a reserving local space for geopolitics. The square by business how democracy is while the labor movements occupies hope to create a politics which is to make them horizontally. It was on insurgency against control. It was sympathetic to aspiration to dismantle the hierarchies into the language was individualism and politics and institutionalism afflicted with the right their aspiration was based on organic deliberation and local the way to repoliticize. Every choice is the system is not going to save us horizontal to the product of individuals in a free market logic doesn't have politics structure. Get out of the way the culture helps to resist society. Neither trust nor feels compelled by collectivist visions. Horizontalism has to be anti-institutional, democratic. Now interaction are good. Forms of social organization by working outside the structure of power when we the course system, but not just subvert the localizing. Does not go far enough. Rights can only be promoted from the top down. Anti-institutional come down close to the libertarian dangerous close to the libertarian right. These have to the institutional life only has to mirror the aspiration. Liberals does not help close hierarchy. There's no society without institutions. The left is also becoming absorbed in the apparatus to demand towards to be decentralized politics that shares a lot with its target structures. Not everyday practices need to be reformed. New regulations or regulatory interplays requires new regulations and seeking out freedom. They have to mirror the ideology that they resist or alternative. It's boring politics. It's the only way to frame criticism for being an end in itself. Frankly, 12 occupiers of a political outcome. Compare the Tea Party, Republican Party continue with the majority in the House. It's still purging senators as own VP candidate. Occupy what the staffers feel it seems to be no intention of doing anything except building communities with this refusal to have leaders with Occupy. The horizontal culture was everything beyond that. There seems to have been no strategy. Catastrophes brought in deregulation and policy is anarchy. This rhetoric was Occupy. What's the reality? You do rebuilding, if you do it by rebuilding a powerful regulatory state, by rebuilding a labor movement with bureaucracy, restore the glass cycle, bringing it back to the government, bringing it back to the border. There's no way to fire the democracy as long as requirements were postponed. To Occupy would remain the experience of processing and testing. The next off-case position. The 1AC says if society continues down the same road, society will be pulled back on the body inside of its coma. This describes social in terms of medicine. Medical analogies undermine the APS method for breaking down anti-vax biologizing a political condition, authorizes expert-driven universalism that squelches situated experience and actualizes violence. Wherein, and 13, medical analogy institution that behavioral political sensitivity approach is highly problematic. Nothing could be more dangerous than the thought by which a violence attributed biological or organic metaphors only before violence. Medical analogy stripping the violence into political dimensions of exponential shock and God, the political realism even more dangerous than biological metaphors naturalize violence and making naturalization using medical metaphors increases the role of the expertise of power whenever there is a need for surgical treatment. The greater the power, but certainly going through the universal ethical knowledge and social engineering these societies can be dealt with that little space left to everyday situation knowledge when an expert intervention is planned. Medicalization enables biological categorization that systematically devalues and excludes huge portions of the population and culminates in racism, social left, and genocide. Hughes and two, the medical model of legitimacy the social abnormalities, cost of social abnormalities, including from social participation in the ground of difference, the social that the institutionalized space of disclosure will often civilize the medical jargon. The medical model is associated with the reactionary theme of the biological destiny. Medicalization which devotes to persons of the state with the urgent and protecting the traumas, declines the social body. Biological reductionism may translate into a politics of genocide. Now the case debate. Latin America is
You can skip the Latin America news.
Okay. One is their all-encompassing description of blackness elevates whiteness to an all-pervasive force that explains all oppression. It reinscribes its inevitability. Specific analysis of racism, crucial ambition. 3, one of the major problems in whiteness literature's reflection of whiteness is a conceptual execution piece possibility for empirical analysis. White comes to mean everything for which domination. Whiteness means a slipper, silver, most more nuanced. Analysis of the whiteness and whiteness emerges as an omnipresent and all-powerful historical force. Despite the warning against using whiteness as a model, looking at literature seems to do so. Whiteness ratified whiteness as something. The direct Western history of the literature reasserts reinstates it. If all of these things, it becomes analytically useless. Empirical investigation requires being able to identify and measure. It's a concept as whiteness has come to mean everything and ends up meaning hardly anything. 2 is identity politics, is a vengeful politics of resentment, which inevitably ends up reinstating terms of oppression. Verma, and 10, political identity becomes over-invested in narrow historical stuff and perpetuates injury, where identity is focused on the experience of exclusion. Inclusion becomes virile, living continues of that identity. The activity operates to reproduce that identity by the exclusion and how is it to resolve the social relations that generate that identity. 2, the extent that identity is associated with the injury, the future what is already been true, policies identity obtains a coherence with the politicization of exclusion. The exclusion existence requires the legitimacy of the universal ideal, and the exclusion from those ideals, such identities become invested in their own opponents to revenge. These are the substitutes for actions rather than actions to remove the causes of suffering that suffering is compensated for the eventual pleasures of reincarnation. Such practices provide obstacles to practices that seek to dispel occasion of exclusions. Turn to the future need not be confused of a brutal rejection of the past. In order to break the seal of the past, we must first bring them to develop political action. Analyzing the past and open-ended political action is unlikely to be achievable by individuals not owned, but requires a community of participants. The pain of the historical injuries, not simply an individual issue, but stems from social conditions which perpetuate injustice. The problems associated with identity politics can be overcome through a shift in which the identity is suppressed in terms of desire rather than ontology by supplanting the language of I am with the language I want this. For us, it would refocus the attention of each rebel as opposed to the identity foreclosed to its past-based grievances. Okay?
Yep.
Before we start, what parts did you not read?
Oh, yeah. So on the second off-case position, it was I read the Varin and Hughes evidence, so the first two cards.
Okay.
And then on the case, I didn't read the first two cards, and then I read the next two cards after that.
So you started at Anderson 3,
Yeah.
every other card.
No, I just read the two cards after that. Anderson 3 and...
So you only read...
On the case, I only read Anderson 3 and Brownblatt 10.
Okay, and then you only read these two cards and then the first two cards. Okay.
Yep. Sorry about that. Not as fast as I thought.
Hold on, I'm deleting the other card.
You good?
Mm-hmm. All right. So you talked about how the alternative is boring politics. Exactly what is this?
Yeah, so the piece of alternative evidence that we read outlines some different strategies that are included in boring politics. It talks about the way that Occupy was evicted because of unpredictable outcomes, and it says that...
I just want to know what we're going to do.
Yeah, so it talks about some different types of political strategies that involve engaging actual institutions.
What are these political strategies and how does that apply to the app?
Exist.
What are these political strategies and how do they apply to the app?
Well, so an example of the political strategy that the alternative would entail is directly challenging an institution and capitalist structures that exist within
How has
the
the
institution.
1AC not done that?
Well, the 1AC is a specific challenge of racism and the way that that interacts with like personal identity. I think it's difficult for me to just say like what the 1AC did because I obviously don't want to be reductionist about the 1AC. I think that we've read a bunch of pieces of link evidence.
Can the alt resolve the 1AC?
Not the 1AC as you presented it.
We claim to solve.
We claim to solve the impact.
I want to know
of the
how you have
1AC.
solved the 1AC in your 1AC speech act right now.
Yeah, well, okay, so obviously we couldn't give your 1AC in the 1NC because...
I understand that. I want to know how it
is.
is that you solve for the fugitivity of Brooke and Rayvon.
Well, so I don't think that Tommy and I can do anything about your
So how did the
personal
alternative
experience.
solve for the app?
I think that the alternative can solve for some of the underlying root causes of racism as is outlined in our
So
link
this alternative has solved some root causes of racism.
The alternative and the strategy, which our evidence outlines, has the potential...
What are these root causes that you have isolated that you've solved?
So our link evidence outlines some different things like, for example, class structure, which has
So
the
you have
potential...
solved class now.
No, well, obviously us performing the 1NC doesn't have the potential to resolve all of the ills of capitalism. We think that we have...
So I just want to know which ones you have actually resolved now. What is done?
So
We can cross off
I think that we have presented a speech act which has helped us to have a discussion about the underlying causes of racism.
Can you define to me what a coma is?
What a coma is?
Yes.
Yeah, we have a piece of evidence that says it's a medical state that a person can be in. Obviously, comas come in different places.
Okay, a medical
different
state
ways,
someone can
rather.
be in. Can you extrapolate on that a little bit more?
Like, I can look up the definition of coma if you want the exact
You're
definition.
saying that our use of coma is a bad thing. There's different definitions of the word coma. I want to
So,
know which part we're utilizing that as a problem.
We think that coma is a medical term that describes a medical condition, i.e. a state of the body that we can physically be in, like you can be in a coma if you're lying in a hospital bed. We've read a piece of evidence that says that when we use those types of medical terms and compare them to
Is
the
your
way
point?
that
I'm sorry, I'm on case now. The Anderson 3 card.
Yeah, sorry.
Is your argument that white supremacy does not shape the world?
No, that's definitely not our argument.
So why should we not like? If it's actually, I'm good.
Okay.
I'll take a second. Are we doing 8 or 10?
We've been doing 10. You
Okay.
guys been doing
First,
10?
Wait, actually, can we start from really quickly?
Proud of you.
You said 736.
Maybe you're wrong. I'm not proud of you.
We're gonna go with
That makes sense. Like 56. Right. I'm gonna go same order.
Yes, it's going to be case, medical stuff, cat.
I haven't done that.
Okay.
And water, please.
George Johnson. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
I don't know for something.
That happened today.
Ready?
A black feminist ontology allows for us to actually understand the intersectionalities of oppression or argument that the black female is literally the dirtiest minority because she has faced oppression of not only having being signified as being of a lower class, but being a female as well as being an African American. Our argument that these type of intersectionalities would actually allow for us to disrupt everything the hegemony that is inside of status quo. Now the song that we played in the beginning of the 1C was literally the way that we were actually disrupting the hegemony that is inside of the debate community. The only for evidence is that literally for centuries we have already been extinct. The middle passage we were stripped of things like culture and identity functionally means that the sex and love evidence has we modes of resistance. Now I'm going to accept the role of validate. It's damn that they can see this useful for the best thing the performance methodology based on anti-black, and of course the black try to articulate capitalism as being the root cause of things like anti-black and solve anti-black. But even if this is true, that may be a method, they do not performatively do it. And that benefit this is the warning fast evidence specifically says that performing pedagogy is only whether it be actually cause these type of power relations and this type of white supremacy to actually be checked inside of the debate community. Furthermore, their 1C does not actually propose an actual method to solve anti-black. Probably means that they do not actually meet the role of valid. Now the black has no articulation on this because he did not actually meet it in the first place. Furthermore, even if they do come up with a role of value, you do not prefer because it's like you're reading the contract with no net benefit further than what you see as well as to see. We are the only ones that actually are telling you how you should frame your actual value in the first place. Now, furthermore, they can see the fact that you, as a judge, you're only you should actually preclude things like blackness before liberalism mistaken. The function see the virtue the evidence that says that literally blackness already assumes that it has to come before these type of liberalism politics and persons. Now they specifically say that all new thing whiteness makes it so that it reinforces itself. We say that that's already always the status quo. Specifically, they say that a specific race analysis is key. But that probably means that's a reason why capitalism is not evaluated first. But the 1C is a crucial starting point because we are that analysis of race that their evidence actually calls for in the first place. That means that leads to a lot of the barbarian evidence also. Furthermore, that probably means that that's a justification of the permutation that I'll get to later.
The medical stuff.
I think you have it backwards. Anti-blackness is medical. Blackness is now a psychological signifier of violence upon bodies. Using a term home is the only way that we can actually articulate the grammars of our pain. This is bubble. In 13 corporate things fighting anti-blackness are risk continue to reveal stereotypes of African Americans being alongside the less intelligent and less intelligent political resentments that reign as centerpiece of American politics. Psychological experiments now show that blackness is the ultimate side of violence as well as danger. So these are all around us. Merkel, you can cover up story of violence, actually treating legitimate persons, self-defense, politics inside of New York, continuing to be accurate to misunderstanding and to misunderstanding the word as a parent's rights for all police defendants, I'm saying racial institutions. institution like of Hispanic youth versus racism, the story of life, legitimacy of past racism, race, black team, life is more like a Balkans, the Balkans is the Balkans that we have folks to say a live germ that remains no capacity for new generates of new forms of diseases for which we have no certain cure for now, specifically a pick out of an individual word or phrase, the worst possible strategies is the exact opposite of our pedagogy, the impossible demand that we made inside the one to see it reclaims the discourse around the body of black object. They assume that words are static and meanings are static, that we are locked into univocal meaning, that they are linked, assume that in terms of our own alternative that they do not have. Now the strategy is disaster for us. They pursue uniqueness for good language, but they cannot win. Not specifically has to reclaim, re-signified language. It has to be full or we are doomed. That's my social location. African Americans do not have a clean or good language because we are not. It was taken from us during the Middle Passage. English is a tool of domination over Latino culture. And of course, in classrooms over brown bodies, all English words are dirty words to me. We have to have linguistic strategy to move past that. That means that there's no way that the criticism can solve any of the keys of permutation or offensive strategy. That it's not just a theory of competition, permutation, but we have to signify on the world. They're so hard to benefit of unpacking languages, the pure taxonomy of anthropologists and linguistics, classifying the embarrassing black language for consumption, as well as squashing permutation to our African signify on their alternative. Now, furthermore, permutation do their alternative, pushing us for words they do not like. Inside of one sees the worst possible strategy, server strike, they run away, BOP. We do not care about fairness because fairness from our social location is impossible. Furthermore, we have literally defined coma as being a state of unconsciousness that lasts for a severe time that is caused by things like injury. Our argument that the Middle Passage was that injury that put us in this type of form of unconsciousness where we think that we are like socially dead. That was entirely of the one to see.
Furthermore, the impact of this was genocide and racism. Where have you been for the past, like, so long? The Omalite 84 evidence says that all that stuff that you're speaking about, per the impact of this, is not unique. Our argument is that only through embracing fugitivity or stopping the hegemonic conversations that are happening right now can we actually stop things like genocide.
They were sleeping on the 1C. They missed us reading the BFF evidence to be specific status of the 1C and starting at a class focus because the black female ontology allows for us to actually start a race as well as class. Now, Marxism relies on the white manifest destiny to articulate revolutionary possibility. This means that the alternative fails. It must be rejected in order to actually articulate our politics whole. If we're seeing the back of Marxism now, where it's just for the politics, even society actually to, can you get my church? My thing is on 5%. To actually eradicate the topic hypothesis first, the rules of problem is that a series of powerful consumption revolution primary in Western modernity as well as project capitalism with the socialism manifestation with this type of theorization, socialism cannot be made to the following assumptions inevitably as there's type of whiteness in some manifestation. Marxism will and proven wait for the animal freedom genocide towards some indigenous people to review from the premium so manipulative position knowledge generate new type of racist practices as well as therefore making the conversation revolutionary based on permutation do the ab and as well as do the ab as well as all simultaneously capitalism cannot explain all of the struggles that bodies actually endure in the first place. It is impossible to create a coalition for a movement if the lower class black man cannot cooperate with the lower class white man. This means that the alternative is not strong enough to actually overcoming works bad with the act including now there's weak arguments equal white denialism that prop up anti-black there alternative is white saviorism disguised by Marxist languages and Wabi 2013. White people are relatively privileged solely because of their whiteness and the white person being here acknowledged that you are participating in some whiteness versus I'm not arguing that class argument is secondary. However, Marxism below moves and worldwide perspective revolution couples are also between most of the defensive guarded private property laws made in first century. So continuing the dogmatic definition for two reasons. One, people of color overwhelming majority of worst population. Second, white savior Marxists can never really liberate us now. Forever Marxism was developed and the factory do not actually account for the plantation. Race is something that we can take time with. Race is not something that we can take time off of view over time or stop worrying about doing long weekends or labor days for anything. Now the decision to center our black bodies in the debate around capital is a form of humanism complicit with anti-black humanism. This is present in 2012. Race has never been treated by the actual property. Globalization, slavery, race become related to labor, as well as African community. It's our Asian hard day pro identification as well as separate from the African capital first slavery. It's one of the common mode of production, not about Marxist research perspective of the rich. The capital, but not any topic conscious, revolutionary, and human subject, commercial overview, some implementation through some humanist reforms, world, arrogant, U.S. forces, Marxist, not more rather than political. The kind of justification, so you need that logos of capitalism was focused on factories European rather than implantations. Furthermore, it's an ontology, stupid. You have the right to actually speak to the question of or outside constructions of black life, and if you don't not actually live in the first place, we are doing the best with the limited position in society that we can, but black life destruction is limited because slavery happened and continues to happen, particularly in 2012. What is the Neurotics of the important inquiry about the political risk economy as well as the room for topic of mandatory type of notion, type of problematic, well as one of the maintaining this social character civil society continue. It's all the war system under capitalism, African subject, we have returned to socially dead object, including as well as the native alienation, the black has not been in condition by studying the social and 5 historical circumstances, of our circumstances. Further permutation people, we cut their commodification arguments in half. We are the speeding commodity, the critical negligence, which cannot be contained. This is Moment 2003. The value of science and possibilities of labor will not only have articulation some of the ground truth about the value of commodity science, but precisely about the possibility of speaking for commodity to speak. We have the intrinsic value of not being confused by certain society arguments to form outside and therefore contradict some whole way of speaking commodity or actually shouldn't be commodity. Ensure that the kind of role and value scared while the smoking encompasses particularly since after conversion theory, the deprivation of the innovation foreclosed by the university, and by the boundary eroticism or car eroticism. Now the act was already a permutation to bring the slave into the fold of the workers' service and further the obscurely bonds in it into the ontological category. Blackness hard is not dialect critical agency, but once we see that brain of the word that is ontological category that humanists we know that's when we see Bartry 12 evidence. Furthermore, the act was furthermore the one we see is the production center optimism that center with that center and infinite multitude potentialism that fundamentally in the table to those bodies targeted and killed by civil society. We did not limit our potential view your colonialist heritage, their rooting or your critiques and political economy. Not understand ontological position. This is position 2012. System of articulation was asked about the data some labor started by the not limited with acceleration about productive as well as food and the response adequately as well as for productive as well as money to the first response and equity policies as well as center optimism and maintain for that liberation.
Alright, 1 second, bro.
Yeah. Okay, 1 second, bro.
Yeah, we do a second.
No, none.
Yeah, we just, yeah, sorry. Alright, you all set?
Yes.
Okay. So, why is debate the key space for individual liberation?
That's not our argument.
Okay, so it's not the key space.
That's not what we said.
Okay, so is debate the only space for individual liberation, rather?
We're not advocating for liberation. We're advocating for survival methods.
Okay, so is debate the only space for those survival
Debate
methods?
is a space for that.
Okay, so why is debate the space that we have to use to advocate for those survival methods? Like, what's the...
No, not we. This is no we. This is...
Sorry, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, like, include myself in your...
Well, you already did it.
I misspoke, excuse me. So, why is this the most important space for...
It's a
your
space we
advocacy?
occupy.
Okay, because it's a space you chose to occupy.
We're here, we occupy the space, which means that we need survival methods inside of that space.
Yeah, definitely. So are there other spaces that you can occupy and have survival methods within?
Well, the survival methods that we practice here are for the real world. This is not just some debate argument that we're like actually running. We actually use in politics of fugitivity. Like, for example, my name is Rayvon. Let's use Trayvon, for example. Like, I really tend in a variety of ways.
So,
in the suburb community, we're like just walking. I don't feel safe wearing a hood because I'm scared that a random person is going to go to me.
If I could ask another question, if that's okay. So, what exactly is the strategy that Black feminists entails? So, you talked about the ontological strategy that is. So, what exactly does that mean?
Well, two different levels here. The like survival method that we actually use is the politics of fugitivity. The BFF evidence specifically talks about how the 1AC starts with Black feminist ontology as like a starting point of understanding different things like classism, sexism.
So
racism.
What is that politics of fugitivity exactly?
I'm not telling you that because you've given me no reason to trust you. Just know that I'm a fugitive.
Sure. So what's the second strategy?
I'm not telling you that either.
So there's one strategy that you're going to disclose, and then there are.
Oh, we told you what that was.
We told you that we're a fugitive. What do you mean the second strategy?
Well, sorry, when I first asked the question, you said that there were two different things, I think.
No, I said no, because you were asking me a question about not necessarily our method, but like why we like are occupying this space. So when I said two things, that's what I meant.
I was referring to the second question. Maybe we were just confused here. So.
No, I think you were confused.
Okay, maybe I'm confused. Confusion happens. So, why exactly?
To the slave it does.
Definitely. So why exactly? Well, I didn't hear what you said.
Never mind.
I honestly did not hear what you said. I was just continuing my question.
Okay.
Sorry, what did you say?
I said to the slave it does.
Oh, I really did not hear your question, so
Okay.
I really didn't hear what you were saying.
Okay.
I was continuing my question.
It's
I obviously
fine.
would never say that.
I'm off the subject.
Okay, so what exactly about Marxism is anti-black?
The fact that Marx does not take into account, it starts at the factory, it does not start at the plantation. Argument is that that's problematic.
So, so in order for it to be effective, it needs to start.
In order for it to actually assume anti-blackness,
Right.
it has to start at the plantation. Yes.
Okay, so that's like it's like kind of the same. It's similar to the starting point root cause arguments.
Root causes are not really important. Our argument is that even if, for example, capitalism is like the cause of things like anti-blackness, starting with capitalism is more important.
Okay.
I'll be all at 9:15.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that.
then the critique.
There you go.
A very small one.
Wait, so like when you sheet them all over you?
I would go same sheet, but up to you.
Is that the same sheet?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I would do.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
You said case first.
Case before the critique, yes.
Oh wait, this is not a first place outside.
Okay, are we all ready? The role of the ballot is to decide the best methodology for which to analyze and organize resistance against oppression. Argument is not that the 1EC wasn't authentic or radical enough, but rather this is the model of debate as resistance in politics inevitably doesn't work out in the end because the only option is restructuring society. While we may not be able to speak from this specific social location, we can all relate to the system that governs our everyday lives. Only adopting a position of analytical nuance can create productive debates that move beyond either or all choice of social justice and move towards declining between competing research methods. Starting points and analytical framings are crucial. Only our framework effectuates tools with which to analyze oppression. Reading 12. Our culture transcends Stephen's frame is not to call it a racial station of them. There's a concept of capitalism, but the reality of the analysis and the conception of capital, and also to conduct problem-driven research and endeavor to give the most possible of the problem which we come from the phenomenon. The sense and needing explanation instead of forcing it into something ready made. Doing so will break the analytical sloth way and immediately show change absence insisting that races are transcendent of capitalist social relations appear to class position touch with the articulation of merit, social justice compatible with neoliberals, and this is useful is to understand inequality, not divine capacity to challenge them. The argument that we don't make a new role balance arguments in the 2NC is wrong because obviously it's still a constructive still before they still have a cross-axis on an etc., which means grounds and double. They say we don't form that's the exact thesis of the critique. Our argument is that we shouldn't use the debate as a site for things like focus on personal relationships, which we articulate in the critique. Rather, we should use it as a site for reorganizing society because that's something that relates to all of us. The alt is a refinement of the 1EC Speech Act. The F doesn't have ownership over it or any way to maintain control over the discourse. Young in 11 is commenting here that teams are arguments constituted from intellectual terms and efforts to regulate speech acts organized out of attention to sincere belief systems on about structural belief discourse. The attempts to govern the speech acts will unavoidably fail because recirculation of discourse is novel. Speech acts always reading success meetings that are beyond our control. These regulative approaches to provide a very limited rhetorical agency. If discourse is limited in agency, then it is likely to have little power to change reality. One cannot simultaneously posit a strong AG discourse change reality. Weak AG discourse severely constrained by the intentive theory of discursive agency. While performance, the teams might find it attractive to capture their own approach, strategically capturing their speech acts is unfair. There seems to be greater disadvantage associated with the attempts to strictly place insincere performances. Now the capitalism critique. Capitalism controls the root cause of their impacts is a conceded climate access as external offense for all their forms of oppression. Not only does all alternative challenge the foundational structure of racism, so it turns the case, but also it results in the liberation of millions of impoverished working class people around the globe. The first argument is the BFF evidence about why they are a form of class. They are an interrogation of capitalism. The 1EC cross-examination made it pretty clear that this is actually a link for us. She talks about how class and gender and race all shape oppression, but then says the 1EC focuses on a black feminist method. Boom, cap is the root cause. It proves the 1EC's use of black feminism is focusing on symptoms rather than causes, which proves they don't solve anything and simply recreate the structures or the structures of violence. The next argument is that Marxism is inherently racist. One is we're not necessarily the Marxist revolution. We can do things like force the government to provide things like social programs that section restructure society in the first place. This argument says that the reason Marxism is bad is because it ignores blackness. I'll read a few cards later about why I focus on the class struggle doesn't necessarily put a focus on race in the first place. The next argument is the permutation. I'll do the link debate on top. They say racial balance is shaped by class and gender, and then use a black feminist methodology which was articulated above the role of the ballot and focus on performative methods is an underestimate of the potential that debate has. Rather than using society as a site for self-liberation, we should devise a strategy to reorganize that society in the first place there, and then make an argument in the one you see that hard bodies of color can't depend on the law, which proves that they preclude any legal challenges to the way the society is structured in the first place. For non-link arguments, first is their focus on intersectionality, the destruction of racial and gender balance ignores the root cause behind those issues. Our argument is that all oppression is centered around class, which doesn't deny the existence of racism and sexism, but rather says that classism has more explanatory power. Their focus on oppositional intersectionality downplays antagonism. Shannon wrote 13 people use an intersection analysis towards the uniqueness of systems of domination. That's opposition of class does not recognize the unique qualities of capitalism that can lead to a position that essentially argues that the end of class elitism under capitalism as anarchists. We oppose class society itself. Anarchists are well positioned to critique intersectionality. The state tends to target a specific set of workers based on their existence within the dangerous intersections we mentioned. We can argue for smashing social arrangements and replacing it with non-hierarchical forms. Second is that they attempt to explain racism as something that is inherent and something that happens in itself. Rather, the Reed Evans, I think, is much better on this question and says that they inaccurately explain that because racism is simply a product of the class of society, i.e. slavery was a result of people wanting more capital and people wanting to increase profits. And it actually cites the empirical examples of how in some instances the Irish immigrant slaves were used over black slave labor because they was more cost-effective. Neoliberal market systems are the root cause of racial oppression. Only attacking the current legal system dismantles racism. Richardson, 97, there is a historical link between capital confinement and applying for domination of class and state use blacks to accumulate the product of capital. This legal system is primary to the exploitative relation of the state controls martial landscape broadcasting of the deceiving populations. This is essential to the maintenance of social confidence or for capital accumulation. The mode of control will be dependent on the dominance of the dominant mode of production. The 19th century South was racist, profiteering. 20th century South committed justice and more certainly racism and profiteering. And essential role of the state justice system is to protect capital's interests of dominant economic class through oppression. Society cannot explain these parallels as it means coincidence or attribute them. The cultural disparity, a thorough analysis might concentrate on the state and powerful economic interests. That card is marked with the phrase powerful economic interest. Second is their focus on identity politics. And the McLaren Evans says that identity is a bad starting point because it focuses on the values of individualism rather than restructuring society. Our argument is not that identity politics is unproductive, but rather it's an inaccurate use of the debate space. Now, the substance of the permutation itself, they don't get one. It's just the one is the perm is just some word that means we get to agree with you. It's a shorthand for a test of opportunity cost between hypothetical actions. This debate should discard the model for debating about competing methodologies. The problem is that it tells you nothing about the best animal or frame of goal of ending in the app. If we, when their starting point is failed to address racism, their perm is a reason to vote negative because it proves that they have not met their burden of proof to be sufficient. Deciding between competing methodologies is necessary to ensure that the affirmative is forced to rigorously defend their strategies optimal and can't permute always superior mechanisms for fighting oppression. When we're actually resolving social problems, political energy is limited and hence needs to be channels. They should be forced to defend the 1AC itself as a political strategy. Young, 2K6, how should we reason about the best ways to use a limited time resistance and creative energy to respond to our structural injustices and combination responsibilities where we overturn a part of what it means to be responsible. And the social connection model is to be accountable for what one has decided to for what structural injustices have chosen to address. Most self-assured responsibility, the more that we can be expected to charge, we must make choices about where our actions can be useful. Most injustices is regarded as most urgent. A risk of the link proves the permutation is either severance or doesn't solve. Next argument is a slew of cards about why the Marx is a focus props of anti-blackness. Even if some anti-capitalist authors think that, that's not necessarily what we talk about as per our arguments. The affirmative is in the neoliberal market, starting their analysis of colonialism from the perspective of racist flawed classes about a starting point which doesn't disprove the fact that it's created racism. Taylor in 2011, Marxism being marginalized and blind to racism rise accounts for class reactions and rise also accounts for the white denial. What do Marxists actually say? Capitalism promises to divide the majority. Racism of all oppression served to racism is developed to justify wage slavery is paid for around the end. Apologies to turn claim to racism is a product of capitalism is to deny the importance it explains to original perpetuation is properly we talk about oppressions intersecting while oppressions reinforce they are shaped by cap. Marx did not write about discovery of when the goals like for the industry African and commercial heading signalized the for a capitalist the production of Marx. They writes about the slave or racial discrimination were not just problems of these slaves. Marx understood racism as workers who had common interests who could become enemies because of racist ideas. That card is Marx of the phrase racist ideas. The next argument is that Marxism ignores the plantation, which was already answered above. They say blackness is an ontology. Our Anderson Evans answers this by saying this is too all-encompassing and focuses on other societal issues that explain the different forms of oppression. Our identity politics arguments also impact turn their focus. The next argument was another permutation that was already responded to above. They say the act is the permutation. No, that's not true, especially when if we want to link to their arguments. Then the last argument is that the 1AC is centered around optimism. I don't think that they read enough of this card in order for that to be I don't think they read enough of this card in order for it to be an argument. However, the alternative isn't necessarily inclusive and solves your arguments. It says we can make the capitalist changes by analyzing on the total organization of society, but making demands on existing institutions rather than focusing on individualism, which creates a form of vertical politics that creates tangible changes.
All right, let's chat for a minute.
Yep.
You said I didn't really know if the card is very optimistic, but
Sorry,
you're just
what's
like, okay.
Yeah, that card was
Wait,
pretty
no,
early
stop.
on,
but you're like, but all we do is make some changes to capitalism. How is that not optimistic?
What? So our argument is that yes.
I know your argument. I'm just trying to figure out how that's not optimistic.
Obviously, the argument that the judge voting negative means capitalism exists.
Okay, all I want you to answer is how saying we make some changes to capitalism is not optimistic.
Our advocacy then is saying that we should use this debate
All right,
as a site to
you said that we
restructure
focus
society.
on the symptoms and not the actual causes. How is this not a medical analogy?
The symptoms and not actual causes. Well, symptom is not just related to as a medical term.
Okay, but I'm saying, but like you can have
symptom. Your
evidence is about medical symptoms, though.
Yeah, no, symptom is not an inherently medical term, though.
No. Okay, but like your evidence is specifically talking about like not only like medical terms, but the symptoms of that is what actually.
Symptom is not an inherently medical term, which means we don't
you said that all oppression occurs from capitalism, correct?
We're not saying.
Explain to me why a lower class white man can join the KKK.
Well, it's probably because that person is, kind of messed up, not the smartest dude in the world.
All right, let's say that. Okay, did George Zimmerman know Trayvon Martin's like socioeconomic background?
Not maybe. Well, actually, I think George Zimmerman was probably under the impression.
When George Zimmerman first saw Trayvon, did he know if he was lower, middle, or upper class?
There are two arguments to answer that. First is the reason why society is organized in a racist
No, I'm not asking you. I don't know. You don't have to tell me why a racist society is racist.
Okay.
I just want you to answer me this question. What's my social location?
I don't know.
Do you know my skin color?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so you don't know my class, but you know my race.
Yeah, that's probably.
So why is race not a better start? If the first thing that you see is my race, not my class, how are you telling me that a class analysis is better?
Because that is a focus that ignores root causes, i.e. the idea that the reason why.
So
society...
if a white supremacist was to, if a KKK member came up to me right now, the reason that he would try to kill me is not because I'm of a lower class, it's because of my race, correct?
This is all a product of a much larger issue than what you're giving.
Oh, right. Okay, well, like, historically, let's talk about the now, right? How is capitalism, how is resolving class issues going to stop a KKK member from shooting me in my head?
It's also a question of what we can use this debate to do. So obviously,
let's talk about that. What did you use this debate? What did you use this debate
obviously,
to do?
nobody can end the KKK via this debate. We think a better method is using the debate to restructure society.
Is whiteness capital? Is whiteness capital? Is whiteness capital?
Is whiteness capital?
Yes.
I'm not sure. Whiteness is a result of capitalism.
Can you sell your whiteness?
Can I? I'm not sure.
You're not sure.
I don't think I made an argument about me selling my whiteness. So.
Well, no, you didn't make that argument. I'm trying to get you to answer the question so I can make an argument.
I'm not really sure what the argument behind that is, so I don't feel.
What is racism?
What is racism?
Because we're talking about
racism is obviously based on discriminating someone or being violent against someone based on the color of their skin. Okay. We're not denying the existence of that societal theme.
Medical analogies. Notice? Yeah. For time, yeah. Thank you. It's just the metaphor analogies. You got time?
One second. I'm good to go.
Sweet. Good.
The 1AC method is underpinned by a medical model of social and political relations. This both makes their approach counterproductive and challenging. Anti-blackness becomes a platform for broader violence. They refer to black life as quote-unquote in a complex metaphor because blacks clearly don't live in a diagnosed state of limited brain function. Describing the world in this way is dangerous. 3 reasons. 1, it naturalizes violence as an inevitable fight or flight medical condition. 2nd is it enables a biological paternization of life, which has been the historical basis for racism and genocide. 3rd is it undermines diverse and situated knowledge by operating in a discursive economy that privileges expertism in the world of the search and the doctor's team. That's very and huge. Their analogy passes medicine as the basis for understanding social phenomena that simultaneously devalues alternatives to social stuff by implying that they are really physical conditions and paradoxically feels racist, employing as civilizing conditions are active in the trouble of healing Norwich and 12 other technical mental knowledge to interpret political situation and situation, and using biological analogy to interpret social phenomena. The conscious and tendencies like colonial concepts of Africa's place for disease. Colonialism was conceived as a healing mission science of public health, contributed to apartheid and segregation was introduced to protect the health experiences, reduce the possibility of perpetuating economy victims, medical rhetoric to castrate teacher rights, where could be excusing behavior, treating survivors in need of healing, could be insulating the error, seeing perpetrating survivors like as victim of equalizes the situation, denying stark differences. Political struggles have nothing to do with medicine. Their analogy provides neuroproductive value. They don't have a net benefit to saying it. In the 1AC ICE 84 science should remain independent of political power struggles. Medical models clearly inappropriate. Social behaviors for medical practice to embrace ordinary behavior should be resisted. Writers use metaphors conclusively as using them as analogies, not suggesting these rushing or diseases. Medicine has nothing to say about the behavior, social actions, and habits, and medical models include social traits and field and have no substance to the more than the activities in which people indulge may be hateful, but unless they meet the clear requirement of diagnosis, society will have to deal with the oddities without psychiatry. Medicalizing social life as a coma obscures enactment and contingent decisions that sustain systems of violence, which undermines the system's datum. And finally, one of the guardians medicalizing into horrible social condition that needs to be eradicated, erasing synthesize metaphorical analogies assume involuntary destiny, which obscures the conscious forces in your interests behind the system as policy. They do not help to evaluate policies. You can agree with the other portions of their method and still vote negative. The alternative is functional refinement of the 1AC debate is a method contesting scholarship, and we have criticized part of the way in which they've presented their ideas. It's better to encourage dialogue and disagreement, but to have the corrective of exposing ideas to contestation as in debate. Bridges in 1, it's argued that only those who have shared experience can understand arguments are risk and social politics. How can we have communication with anyone else that's talking to each other, participating in this shared language and construct the apparatus that allows us to understand the accounts being riddled with sensibility and self-centeredness, my target prejudice, and more self-determination, ideological individuals that access to a particular experience does not attack special authority. The argument excludes the outsider from a gaming community. This argument is based on false positivity. The purpose of sound it would not follow that research should be excluded from attempting to understand the experience. Frequent including people from outside the community will import the racist frameworks of understanding is plainly not. It thinks that Western research is located exclusively in a positive tradition, even if this has been the dominant one. Marks that piece of evidence at the phrase dominant one. Argument engagement is not commodification. Saying that we have come to an incorrect conclusion is not the same thing as consuming their knowledge. We've only criticized a small part of the 1AC. The first argument that QEC sees BOGO evidence, which is simply a link. It compares racism to a germ or illness, which obviously is not the same thing. A germ or illness is distinct. We obviously agree that racism is horrific and maybe even worse than a germ or illness. However, we've read evidence that the two should just not be compared because they are distinct things, and that analogy is just problematic for a bunch of reasons. We've read evidence that says that justifies violence, because when we say that justifies violence by making those analogies, the next 2 arguments are just uniqueness claims. However, the all creates uniqueness because it means that we approach these problems in a way that does not necessarily include these types of analogies. It also does not mean that if we don't include these analogies, it's not net less colonialist, or that the affirmative doesn't reinscribe coloniality as per the 1AC evidence that was read below. Now, the permutation plate links to all of our offense. The permutation cannot sever the part of the act that outline the body metaphors. They need to defend the scholarship of the 1AC and how they framed their arguments. They should be held accountable for the way that they introduce those arguments into the debate. Obviously, there were a lot of permutations, but I think that the link argument will be sufficient to answer it. It can't overcome the link. Body metaphors reinscribe harmful power structures. Shoulder instead of the mobilization of body metaphors serves to naturalize, territorialize identities. Body metaphors are discourses of power which obscure internal exclusions and dominations. Metaphors inseparable from germination of meaning, language, and thought is highly implicated in the production of the space. Bodily metaphors can be particularly dangerous because they naturalize what is social and political regardless of how they are used. The permutation makes it more difficult to solve the act. They don't have a net benefit to the permutation. The reason why including body metaphors is important. The presentation is problematic and solidifies harmful control. This Halliday insists emphasizing expertise will undermine democratic autonomy, will enhance the right to colleagues by creating a buffer against domination. The use of medical analogies becomes particularly problematic. The implication is that laypersons have no more to say about how a surgeon conducts an operation, but the technical matters of professional competence deal with the peer review, but it is not clear that shaping minds, instilling values, preparing citizens are the same sorts of problems of reducing a fever. Their former tasks have been irreducibly political, and the political component is not a closely held form of professional expertise. It makes the construction of professional barriers to influence a threat to the essential component of
democracy, as an essential component of democracy. We haven't made an argument about fairness, so I'm not sure what the 2EC argument is, but I don't think that it applies to the AF. The next two arguments were both answered above because they're related to whether or not the AF includes a medical analogy or not. We've already made arguments about how the AF includes medical analogy and the distinction between medical analogies and actual medical considerations. Obviously, things like racism and genocide both exist in the status quo. We agree that those are bad. We just think that part of the AF is problematic.
Sorry.
738.
Oh my gosh, this is
anti-medical criticism, and then Kat.
After topic 2, the role of the ballot debate, we're still winning our role of the ballot that you must vote for the best speech acts and formally and methodologically breaks down anti-black. They had no benefit to their role of the ballot. Alex and our two that was in the 2AC, the first and the second. 11 of the spaces we talk about how we need survival strategies within spaces, like debates with spaces like the rest of the world, how we need to be future to civil society. And the second one, our warning fast evidence talks about formally we need to subvert things like white. If we're winning that the debate is embedded in things like how the structure of whiteness, we're winning the fact that the only way to challenge it is through our performative pedagogy. They said the problem is that when we try to use performative pedagogy to relate to our personal life, nowhere in the 1AC do we ever talk about our personal experience. We just talk about how the 1AC performance is necessary to subvert things like white. They think that we speak from we may not be able to speak from a specific social location, but we can all relate to the government that in our everyday life. That is not. We're not saying that we need to talk from our specific location. We're saying that we just need to be challenging these systems of the big and already our role about already in public. Their role about they said that we must decide the best medicine to analyze and organize against the principle. Our argument that we need to start with anti-black because just starting at a precedent is too big. We're saying that anti-black is the fulcrum of civil society. They had no desire to our role ballot for also extending a lot of evidence that talks about specifically that we're already should already be out and to this moral on the modern the medical flow. Good job to me and spinning a tea debate, but we're already going to be winning this vote because they're the only ones who have defined exactly what a coma is. We have defined it as a deep state of unconsciousness that is for a prolonged period of time called by injury or illness. Rebuttal did a fantastic job in the 2AC specifically. I was like, why he like the middle patch with the injury to the black body. We have no reason to why the analogy that we posted in the 1AC is not an accurate one, something that is not actually true to black people. We're saying that it's something that we're actually experiencing. The link is not a unique thing for things there's already biological too. Black people think like eugenics have already happened. That's the reason why there's no impact to this flow. They said permutation is going to be severing out of the 1AC, but no, it's not. There's nothing that we're severing. We're saying that the impact is not unique. The only chance that the 1AC resolved by stealing away from civil society. We also see the fact that the black body was never supposed to engage in the American or the English language in the way in which they have. I said a good method for resistance. We're arguing that the black body was never actually given. Is it a card that you read?
No, argument just was that we focus on language that excludes blackness because
when you focus on language it excludes blackness because we're never actually taught to learn the language in the right way. They said that when we use body metaphor, that's a problem. No, it is not. We're saying that we're inevitably tied to our body. Ravana asked a question in the 2AC talking about why when if somebody is looking at him, do they look at his class, do they look at his body? They look at his body first. That is always the reason why we should start with the body first and not just the abstract. They said that you can agree with all the other portions of the method. All the affirmative is still vote negative. No, you did not. You're not going to affirm black scholarship for the negative. They have not performed the 1AC. Do not allow the alternative grade any of them. Our faculty at best is just a non-unique genocide, which means you should just try or not be affirmative. Our only 84 of them specifically highlights why they like genocide and institutional racism are already non-unique. There's no reason to vote on the medical
But they said you look at the symptoms and not the actual cause.
They said that you look at the symptoms and not the actual cause. No, we look at the actual cause of the medical symptoms that the black faces is the reason why you should.
No, that's a medical term.
It's a medical term. Okay. Captivate. At the end of the debate, what did the alternative actually do? We're winning the fact that the 1AC is the only strategy for resistance for the black body. Our role in the ballot debate should shape how you see the capitalism flow. We're winning the fact that we're the only ones who steal away. They said that the neoliberal is the root cause of all racial oppression. No, it is not. Even if they can win that it was the root cause. We're winning the fact that getting rid of things like capitalism will not do anything to change the way blackness is constructed today. We're winning the fact that blackness is something that's already attached to our body. That's the reason why we're saying that we can be stealing away from civil society that all the rest of it is centered around class oppression. Even if they win the fact that it is centered around class oppression, we are winning the fact that they will not be just breaking away from it or doing boring policies, will not do anything telling me to probably try it out for the firm. They said we don't get a permutation because we're severing out of the 1AC. No, we will not. We are already saying we're starting with the intersectional analysis of black people allow us to understand things like sexuality, class, and race. We're probably winning the fact that even if things like class oppression is important, our argument is that we're starting at the black feminine ontology is necessary to understand things like the distinctions between classes and races and sexuality. We have 3 net benefits to starting with the black feminine ontology. They have none. They said that capitalism is the root cause of all our impact, but no, it's not all of our evidence talks about how anti-black is after it was shaped after things like the middle passes made the black other as something Like, it made black kids at the fulcrum of civil society probably be a reason why you should vote on presumption. They have no reason why they can solve for me and rape on our argument that you cannot capture any of the ones you solvency. We not have a survival method for us. We have actually leave the room. They said that we're not Marxists. We just focus on class and producing things like social welfare program. But no, it's not. You're all like, it was like 39 times I looked at their documents where they mentioned things like Marxism. We were winning. The fact that it's a Western school of thought that it does not start with the plantation. They're never accomplishing things like Marxism. That's the one AC. They said that
all simultaneously. That's the precedent told us that Marxism is developing in factory, not plantation.
It's in the precedent 12, the evidence that we must conduct this.
420.
It's 430.
430.
The order is going to be the case, followed by the medical pick, followed by the capitalism critique. Okay. Everybody good? The role of the battle is to have organized the best message to challenge oppression. A couple that benefits is accessibility. Everybody in this debate has a different social location. It's only a question of, but the general capital structure, the organized society is something we can all relate to and something we can all challenge to be. Is it creates a more productive model of debate. I'll read evidence. This allows us to understand inequality, which allows us to undermine and distort its impacts in the future. C is that the K is an impact term, so they're focused sole focus on anti-blackness because it says it ignores the reason why that exists in the first place, which is a precondition for its existence. They're often on the role of the battle page is about survival. Survival struggles. Argument is that artificially limits the debate space because it makes us too focused on what we do for ourselves, which reflects things like individualism, which is an inherent value of capitalism, which means the critique necessarily impact turns the back turns this argument. They make an argument about why focus on anti-blackness is the best anti-blackness. Our argument disproves the fact that anti-blackness is the fulcrum of society by saying that is a condition of other forms of oppression that are results of how society is structured in the first place. Now the pick, I'm not going for it. I'll concede that language is inherently white, which means even if we said the word symptom, that's not really an offensive argument for them. Now the critique view this debate through the lens of external offense. Both of us claim to challenge racial oppression. However, only we have an impact to the overarching capital system, i.e., the billions of people who are exploited for labor on an everyday basis, which necessarily justifies violence against all of the non-elites who live through. So the non-elites who live through society, which means if you think the huge best challenges race debate is Ross, that is an easy thing to hang your hat on. Now, the first argument is that the alternative did not do anything to advance to challenge racism. I think this is kind of a blip in the 1 ER arc, in which I explained a few specific reasons in the 2 and see about what boring politics can do. We create challenges on different forms of institutions via the political process, where we say the government needs to provide things like social programs, or we need to explicitly call out elites to say that they're destroying the fabric of society and repower things like the lower class, which they have no specific solvency insight about why that fails to restructure capitalism. Now that inherently also restructures the way of racial oppression as a person status quo. Even if voting negative doesn't end capitalism or racism, it creates a step in the right direction where less economic exploitation. It also means less racism because people will stop using lower class people who are minorities to do the work for them, which restructures the way society views the non-white people as simply a tool for the way capitalist production. The next argument is that we don't change blackness because it was already there. I already explained about why we create tangible steps to challenge that system in the first place. I'll explain why capitalism is the root cause of the racism impacts here. One is they've conceded a couple pieces of read evidence and a piece of virtuous evidence we read in the 1 and C and 2 and C that actually outline historical examples. One is racism was not something people did because they were inherently, or slavery wasn't something people did just to be for the sake of being brutes. Rather, it was something for an economic profit, i.e., the Middle Passage was for the purpose of people making more money and accumulating more capital. There are evidence that supports in the Deep South where people actually used Irish immigrants rather than blacks for slavery because that was perceived to be a more cost-effective solution. When there was a hurricane in New Orleans, the upper-class people were, including upper-class black people, were shipped out of the city before the rest were allowed to escape before the rest of the population, which proves that capitalism is necessarily the fulcrum of society. Now, the next argument is the permutation. I think this was kind of underexplained in the 1 ER, which, by the way, I think is kind of a general theme in the 1 ER that some things are under-analyzed. You should not allow the 2 ER to get away with the massive extrapolation of different analysis because I cannot predict that, and I'm not a position that gives the affirmative unlimited ground. The permutation, you don't get one because this debate is a question of competing methods, not a question of competing texts. If we went our intersectionality and identity politics linked arguments, it proves that your starting point is flawed and you should be held accountable for that. You have conceded a piece of Young evidence which says political energy is finite, and the fact that you've used this debate space as a site to do things like identity politics and challenge the different spheres of oppression proves that you necessarily link to our argument and necessarily trade off with our alternative. I'll do the link debate here. They've conceded a couple of link arguments about intersectionality. The alternative doesn't necessarily say racism doesn't exist. Rather, we say that classism is the most important thing. That is something that is structured. The rest of society and other forms of domination are results of that. And absent a focus on classism as prior to black feminism, it proves that the 1 EC only focuses on symptoms rather than causes, which they've conceded is a solvency deficit to the affirmative reason why even if you challenge things like racism or people who are racist against you, that racism, those forms of oppression simply get redirected throughout society where people will start being more oppressive to people of different genders or homophobic or more classes because that system of oppression still survives in the first place. They make arguments about why anti-blackness was shaped by the middle passage, no capitalism, did that in the first place. They make arguments about why we're Marx and that's bad. They've conceded the characterization of the alternative in our link arguments. Even if it's aligned with the Marxist camp of thought, that doesn't mean that we are inherently right supremacist stressors. There's a couple of Marxist authors. Our argument is not that capitalism is the only thing in society, but rather has more explanatory power than racism or gender violence. Anything else?
Answer that we don't solve their personal experience.
Oh.
The case.
Yeah, we impact on the idea that we need to solve their personal experiments. That is an ineffective way to use debate. We should use debate to reorganize society, which is something we can all relate to and not predicate off of social location.
Alright, case, medical terms, kind of.
Why he's so busy coming from the 1 yard or other flows, you literally can see the fact that the 1 yard says that we are this encompass your role. The ballot should vote for the best thing that performatively and methodology based on anti-black today. We encompass our role of ballot because that is a resistance against oppression. Furthermore, the one thing that's literally provide no more resistance for people of color. Now they give net benefit inside the 2 and R, but when have you ever read a contemplate and read a net benefit inside the 2 and R? This is not acceptable. They say that this is more acceptable, but we are in the fact that for whom your shit is acceptable for white people, there's not really nothing to actually come to slave. Now our net benefits are so 8 was the section 11 evidence that we provide a mode of resistance for we use a positive fugitivity. Now we say that the reason we have not been literally disclosing what that actually means inside of the debate community is because we are saying that they give us no reason to trust them, which means that all you need to know for the voter means that we are literally using our 1C as a mode of resistance. We said that the blatant of a moral technique was disrupting the hegemonic discourse that were inside of the 1C subpoint beats warning fast evidence about performing pedagogy. Now this is not literally talking about your personal experience. You do not have to perform your personal experiences. The performance of the 1C through the immortal technique was not a performance of our personal experience, rather it was a performance about why we should not actually talk about things like the federal government work inside of the system. Problem is that is the reason why performance is a disadvantage to the role of the ballot, and literally performance is the reason why you should actually vote affirmative, or you can just look at it as a reason why you should not vote negative. Furthermore, they say that links us back to ourselves because we're too focused on ourselves. But we are saying that when you have a George Zimmerman in front of you and you are Trayvon Martin, sometimes you need to focus on yourself. Your universal approach to whiteness is not actually acceptable for it to slave, because while we are so trying to focus on everyone else, we are literally looking to the left and George Zimmerman is shooting us to our right. That probably means that the criticism is not an actual impact turn, because we are literally saying that our focus on the black female ontology is the only way that we can actually understand the intersectionality between things like class, race, sex, and gender. Probably means that the black feminist ontology is the best actual starting point for this. The first thing and all that probably means that they answer the arguments they are trying to make about why the criticism will function that way. Lastly, I want you to, at the end of the day, remember that the 1AC was always already starting from a point of literally analyzing class, but our arguments that when you only focus on class analysis, it mentions things like race analysis, which is more significant in magnitude. All you need to know is that you voting affirmative affirms our use of fugitivity inside of the debate community as a good thing, affirming blackness, our ability to actually do that. Medical critique. They did not kick this correctly. The argument that your focus on language literally is not accessible to the slave, because every time you want to actually focus on language, it literally excludes the accessibility of the slave. Probably turns their role of the ballot, because how can you say that your role of the ballot is most accessible when you don't even allow for us to actually speak the same language that you are functionally speaking? That probably means that the performance of them actually focus on language. I think the reason why you should reject them is literally how the slave master was able to keep the slave compliant, because literally the slave master brought Africans over here. They literally separated the Africans so that they cannot speak the same language. That's why things like Creole languages were created in the first place, because slaves needed a way to actually communicate with each other. That's why they started to do things like sing songs like Waiting in the War, so they can actually communicate, because things like languages were stripped from them.
So that probably means that turns the accessibility argument of their role of ballot now the captive. At the top, the only thing that we're being given, you can look inside of crossings. I'm like, did George Zimmerman know Trayvon Martin's like a socio-economic background? He said no. The only thing that he knew was that nigga was black. That is our argument, that when you only focus on class, that ignores the fact that there are things like skin color that actually cause these problems in the first place. Furthermore, you see the fact that in crossings, I'm like, what's my class? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, what's my race? He can actually pinpoint that, which means that race is that actual signifier of literally positions inside of society that we are talking about. Furthermore, even if they can read the fact that little things like capitalism are causing things like the middle passage, they do nothing to actually conceptualize the way that oppression happens inside of the status quo. Furthermore, they're seeing the fact that since the lower class white man cannot work with the lower class black man for a class analysis, there's nothing to actually stop oppression, which means that these root cause arguments that the 2 and R goals for don't ever matter in the first place. Now they specifically say that out here is the kicker here. The 1AC provided a mode of resistance through a policy for the CP I just done. They work above. The only thing that the 1AC has advocated was that we create modes of resistance to foreign policies. There was no analysis of how they actually done this. The first thing they say they have created a challenge of the institution. But we are saying we have already did that also through the 1AC by using policies of fugitivity, which means that the 1AC was already the permutation. Now they come for the 1 yard saying the 1 yard was little, and that was a trend inside of the 1 yard. I'm sorry to let you, but it was also a trend inside of your 2 and R. You gave no analysis about what the 1AC was not always already there. They say that they are tangible steps. Well, this is Emancipation Proclamation. We don't want your tangible steps. Our argument is that every time a white policy is made in the concept of whiteness, you think that you are doing something to actually help other people when it really is just hurting. Furthermore, no impact was seen inside of the 2 and R. They did not actually conceptualize the AIDS like case turner, because their argument literally is not that capitalism actually explains anti-blackness, rather it explains racism. Our argument that anti-blackness is not literal racism, it's not an identity. Blackness is an ontological ability that society gives you, which means that the lower class white person is ontologically black. How it means that the resistance our role of battle was to break down anti-blackness, was not to break down racism, which means that we're not starting at the point of race, but we started anti-blackness, which assumes capitalism and assumes classes makes it that the upper class black people were the first to go in the Hurricane Katrina, but you have it wrong. It was the white people, it was the upper class, middle class, and lower class, everything white people. The fact that they were white means that it gave them that superiority, no
matter if they were of a lower class than an actual black person in person. They say that we focus. They say that we focus on the symptoms, but we say that we don't focus on the actual symptoms. We focus on the here and the now, and if the here and now is the symptoms today have no reason for it, that's not a good thing. This does not mean the world of ballot, even if it methodologically can actually solve racism, it doesn't do it performatively, and that's not anti-blackness, which means that it's the half is always a foundation.
Sure.
Oh, my amazing question. What was the app?
We took 17 seconds.
Alright, this was a fantastic debate. I ended up voting AF. I think that the biggest issue here for me is this technical concession on the medical K. Like, I think your concession of language is always white / something that's inaccessible for black people is pretty problematic for you in terms of winning any sort of alt solvency. You sort of hang the reason to prefer your role to ballot on this claim about accessibility, and I think that's pretty strongly undercut by this argument. It leads me to do a more favorable reading of some of their arguments that anti-capitalist struggle basically can't deal with anti-blackness, and I think that speaks to the capability of your alternative to resolve oppression more generally, which is sort of the role of the ballot. I think that that's a pretty important issue because it means that even if I conclude that survival strategies aren't necessarily capable of overthrowing oppression writ large, that they're still sort of a necessary precondition for moving in that direction. I think like their Warren-Fashing evidence starts to at least say that this like always already permutation argument maybe has a better shot of dealing with broader structures of oppression than this alternative that I think is in pretty rough shape because of that issue on the language question. And so, I think you're doing a decent job on some of the link arguments and some of your root cause explanation. The main advice I would give you going forward, obviously, I think that sort of technical concession is something you don't want to do. I think that in terms of the root cause argument, you need a better explanation of why, even if I conclude historically that capitalism is the root cause of the problems, why confronting capitalism now and not highlighting something like anti-blackness can productively deal with the problems that capitalism has wrought, because I think they get some headway on this argument that right now we need to deal with anti-blackness even if your root cause argument is true. And I think you could devote some more time to the link argument. So, like, why is survival strategy so problematic? Like, this is something you allude to, and I think your evidence is decent on. But I think that there's more work you could do in the 2NR, because I feel like you sort of allude to those things and then just sort of explain the like water balloon example where it's like it just shifts oppression to other places. I feel like there's more you can unpack to why survival strategies are akin to a strategy of privatization that maybe you're not doing productive work. But clearly that would require you to beat the like totally inaccessible argument. That's like a top shelf level thing. So yeah, I'll answer any of y'all's questions first.
What is the way you would have kicked out of the medical K and 2NR?
I think it was pretty tough for, like, I was not super convinced that I could think about this as just like a pick based on the way this debate was going. Like, I think that had you read sort of an alternative that was, like I definitely thought capitalism was the better option because at least you had some like sort of, alternative oppositional strategy that I thought maybe could get to the case. I think if I give you the pick, then obviously that's a route to do that. But just after the 1AR, I remember thinking that like they had sort of convinced me that I shouldn't just like ignore the rest of the 1AC because you pointed out one problem with it.
Okay, that makes sense. I think maybe like earlier developing arguments about why we like get to kick positions and something about like I guess the alternative we advanced in the 2NR.
Yeah, well, I also think potentially you could kick this position and like answer the language is inaccessible argument, but like when you explicitly concede it, that makes things real tough for you. It's sort of like when you concede intrinsicness on another disad and go for politics. It's like, so yeah. So I thought y'all debated well. I think that there's maybe some places where you can like mine some more stuff from your evidence. Like I thought the Barchesi card was pretty good, and maybe a more detailed explanation of that in the 2AR could help you to explain why the alt doesn't solve if this language thing doesn't convince me. I think for both sides, sort of the roll the ballot argument, like I think it's good you're advancing roll the ballots, but it seems to sort of beg the question of a lot of the other parts of the debate. So I understand that you have to extend it, but maybe if there's a way that it can be like crystallized to sort of say, like this is why you prefer our roll the ballot. I think it sort of necessarily happens over the course of the entire debate, but it's a place where I started was just like, can I decide to roll the ballot? And I was like, well, first I have to look at the rest of my flow. And so that was kind of, something that if there's a way you can get to that, that would be good for you. And yeah, that's like the sort of the key things I would say, but I thought debated well.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mhm.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good luck, everyone.
Good luck tomorrow, y'all.
Thank you.
Hey, remember that time? It was a big deal. They used to